Hi, I'm Allison Hall, and I'm here with Senator Eric Oemig of the 45th Legislative District. Senator, you're Vice Chair of the K-12 Education Committee, and you sit on the Quality Education Council. Clearly, you've been a leader in moving the education reform discussion forward. What are your next plans?
Well, Allison, this session, given the worldwide recession and what we're seeing in our own budget, my goals are simply to preserve K-12 funding. The governor's first budget, just delivered more devastating cuts to our public schools. So first, I want to figure out how we rebalance the budget so we buy back some of those cuts. Second, I want to give local districts a few more tools about how they can raise their own money and fund themselves and their programs.
Senator, tell us a little bit more about the Race to the Top challenge, and how is Washington positioning themselves to gain that federal funding?
Race to the Top is something President Obama put together. He took $4.5 billion and he set up a competitive grant process where he set some rules. And it's really the most leveraged $4.5 billion the education community has ever seen. Every state in the country has been competing, and the requirements, as specified by the president and his leadership team, is that you have very robust teacher evaluations to help teachers do better, that you have a great data system so you can see how kids are doing and how they're improving, how you're closing the achievement gap, and finally, that the state have a way to intervene in chronically underperforming schools. These are schools that year after year after year fail their kids. And so we've got some legislation that we'll run this year to make sure that we're the most competitive that we can be to qualify for that federal money while simultaneously taking a step forward on our own long-term reform agenda.
Can you explain a little more about prototypical funding?
Sure. Actually, the way we drive money out today to school districts is very cryptic. We use arcane formulas that most people can't understand, much less explain. And the problem, one of the problems, is, for instance, we use staff ratios that suggest that there's maybe 18 kids in a class. But if any parent or anyone goes into a classroom in any district in the state, they don't see those kind of student-to-teacher ratios. And with the new model that we put into motion last year with our ed reform bill, and we've really worked all summer long into the winter holidays, specifies that we talk about funding in terms of caseloads. How many kids will be in a classroom? How many kids are assigned to a librarian or a social worker or a nurse? And this makes it transparent and accessible for the first time about what we as a state think we're buying and what taxpayers and parents should be expecting in their school buildings. So we call it the prototypical school funding formula.
Prior to your legislative career, you worked as a Microsoft performance manager and have talked about using data in education reform. So how will you be using data going forward?
Well, pretty much in everything that we do. And if we rewind and look at how we've got to where we are today, my first year in the Senate, we did an education data collection bill where we required districts to report new, rich data that links students to teachers to classrooms and curriculum. We've been collecting this data now, and last year, as part of the reform bill, we had some legislation that changed how we report data, how we communicate what's happening in those classrooms with those teachers and those students. And what I suspect to see pretty much every year after year after year is taking the evidence-based data and implementing best practices and changing our education policies around what those data inform us.
Senator, thank you for meeting with me today. If you would like to share your thoughts with Senator Oemig, please use the contact information at the bottom of the screen. We'll see you next week.